And we're back live on Skywatchers Radio with the one and only, the legendary Bill Birnes, back on Skywatchers. Welcome back, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Angel, and thank you for letting me know we're back on the air.
We're back on the air.
So sorry. We should have informed you.
We should have been back on the air 5 minutes ago.
Sorry.
But we're now live, and we have a lot to talk about, Bill. Of course, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Very long time.
Right, a whole 36 hours.
Yeah, it's been crazy, those 36 hours. A lot of things have happened in 36 hours. I took a nap.
And that's a major event.
That's a major event in my life.
Very impressive.
People have no idea how much of a major event that is. No, but seriously, a lot of stuff has been happening. Of course, we were talking off air, and one of the things we wanted to touch on was Elon Musk and the announcement that he's getting this robot spacecraft to Mars. Elon Musk, yeah, whatever. And he's getting a spacecraft to Mars on 2018. Look, Chris Brown, you have a great name too. But he's getting a spacecraft to Mars on 2018, and we want to touch on that. But also, I know you are always writing books. Is there any books you have out that you're putting out right now that you want to talk about?
Psychiatric Criminology comes out in June. I'm sending around the manuscript for my Edison book, Edison and Tesla, and Spirit Phone to Talk to the Dead. I'm talking about a couple of other UFO-themed titles. And that's really what I'm working on.
If you need a beta reader for that Edison Tesla book, Bill, I volunteer as tribute.
Okay, well, I may need that. I mean, one of the things that excited me about that story was that the other big news is that I've been picked up for a 4th season for NASA's Unexplained Files on the Discovery Science Channel. So I'm going to be starting to film that next month. It's in May. This is April, so it's next month.
That's exciting.
So,
yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's something.
Tesla fascinates me, so I love that you're writing a book about his connection with Edison and spirit phones.
So, like I said earlier, guys, if you want to know about anything, Bill Birnes.
Bill Birnes.
Well, see, it was. Thank you. It was the whole Tesla Motors connection today. I mean, that reminded me that just to bring this up, it's Edison's least known project. In fact, it is so few people know about it that most people think it's a hoax. Most people think it never happened. I mean, you talk to any of the Edison scholars, the basic, the Charles Edison Fund, people like that, and they basically look the other way when you mention Edison's spirit phone. And so there is almost a concerted effort now, it's almost political, not to talk about the spirit phone, even though in magazines in the 1920, Thomas Edison was giving interviews freely about his spirit phone. In fact, Michael Shermer, our friend Michael Shermer, said the whole thing was kind of a hoax and blown out of proportion, yet there in Popular Science magazine from 1933, there is an article describing a demonstration that Thomas Edison made, describing his device that was supposed to communicate with the dead, or at least register the presence. And so the purpose of this manuscript that Joe and Martin and I did was to try to explain why. And then along the way, we discovered that Nikola Tesla had kind of like spies monitoring what Edison was working on. And so in Tesla's journal, and Tim Swartz writes about this in his book on Tesla, in Tesla's journal, there are all these mentions of the machine that Edison was working on, which really was kind of a motion picture projector that was tied to a photoelectric cell that was tied to a meter, so that if anything crossed that beam of photons, that light beam would register on the photoelectric cell, and that would register on the meter, and Edison would know what he was looking at, or that something had crossed the beam that he couldn't see. Tesla was working on something very similar right at the same time, that was based on radio frequencies. Now we call it EVP, but back in the 1920s and the 1930s, Tesla was, after Edison died, Tesla kept on working on it, trying to find the missing frequencies for people who had passed away but whose voices still lingered as radio waves. So that was the competition circa between 1920 and 1930.
Interesting.
Creepy experiments.
That is creepy. Very
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah.
No wonder it's one
Allie.
of Tesla's lesser known experiments. Sorry.
And
Christopher.
I would love to be able to hear Elvis's voice again there.
Oh, baby, I'm the king.
That's it's not a phone I ever want to call, but that does not surprise me with Tesla.
With my luck,
Yeah.
I'll get a busy signal.
At all.
Yeah.
Busy signal.
Well, the whole
Yeah.
point of Tesla was not that he was, but it was much more than spirits. He was trying to contact ET. He believed that Earth was being bombarded with radio waves from outer space that contained messages, whether inadvertent or deliberate, from other planets and other civilizations. And so that's what he was trying to figure out.
Bill, it's pretty safe to say that Tesla was a big believer in space and aliens being out there in outer space. He was working on a UFO supposedly before he passed away. Also, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tesla was a huge believer that there were other civilizations on other worlds, and that all of those radio waves, that the whole universe was made up of radio waves flying back and forth, bouncing off each other, and each containing data. And it was his attempt to find the right frequency to be able to tune in on that data, which he believed was verbal, and that's what he was working on. And he was working on that for the last 10 years of his life, and he was living in New York City.
What do you think happened to all that data that he left behind when he passed?
I hope that it got confiscated.
Probably did by the government.
It did. There was he had a treasure trove of data. All his inventions,
I can imagine. Yeah.
were in his room. It was in the New Yorker hotel, and upon his death, that room was raided by the FBI. This was in 1943. Now, the thing with Tesla was that at the outset of World War II, he went to the United States government with a proposal, and he wanted to get paid for this thing, to study the concept of anti-gravity, because he believed that the country that mastered anti-gravity would win the coming war. And remember, Tesla was a Serbian, so his country was under the shadow of Hitler as well. So he wanted to find a weapon, and the United States to get himself hired to develop an anti-gravity beam. And we know that such a thing can be done. We played with that when we were on UFO Hunters, with an ultra-high sound beam into a Faraday cage, and it actually levitated an object. So folks can see that on YouTube now. But so that's what Tesla believed. But the United States turned him down. They thought he was a crackpot, even though everybody was using alternating current. So what Tesla did was he went to the Soviet Union, and he asked them, and they gave him $25,000, or some amount which was a lot for 1941, 1942, to develop this thing. Well, the United States intelligence services were so freaked out by the fact that here was Tesla, who'd gotten a grant from the Soviet Union, that when he died, they raided his apartment. They took all of his notes and put his notes in the custody of the Office of Alien Properties. At the end of the war, 1945-1946, remember, the map of Europe had been totally redrawn in 1946. So now there was Serbo-Croatia and Kosovo, and this was now Yugoslavia, and it was run by this dictator, Marshal Tito. And Yugoslavia was now, that Serbia was incorporated into Yugoslavia, they demanded Tesla's notes from the Office of Alien Properties, and we turn them over. And now folks can go to Belgrade and actually go to the Tesla Museum. But all the notes that were handed over to the Yugoslav government for the Tesla Museum, all of those notes, here's what's so funny, they didn't include one set of notes. Those are the notes for Tesla's anti-gravity. And those notes were kept in United States custody, and ultimately they were sent to General Nathan Twining of the Air Materiel Command at Wright Field in Ohio. And it was Nathan Twining at Wright Field who took the Roswell material in 1947.
Ooh. That's an interesting connection. No, that's an interesting connection. You know, there's no such thing as 6 degrees of separation in ufology. It's more like 2. Unless, of course, you're abducted.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? Let me ask you, because, I've heard, little stuff about it, but it's pretty much that, Edison kind of won there. He got all the funding and Tesla was kind of left behind the scenes. Why was that? Because it sounds like to me that clearly he was the smarter guy. I mean, and if he's working on these
part of it
things,
is politics.
You're right, except that
and money.
There are a number of factors. One was that Tesla was his own worst enemy. I mean, he was bordered on manic depression. So even though he was brilliant and he had these incredible flights of fancy, he could not stand to be contradicted. And so there was that difference in personality. The second was Edison hated Tesla because it was Tesla's company, backed by Westinghouse, I guess. It was actually Tesla's company that won the bid for the Chicago World's Fair of 1893 to electrify the whole fair with alternating current. And the rivalry between Tesla and Edison and DC versus AC was so intense that Edison actually arranged to have a person killed to show how dangerous AC was. See, the thing with direct current was that direct current dropped off markedly. It was only good for 1 square mile. So you have to have relay stations built every mile or so. And Edison already had his own office, his own company, distributing municipal power to New York City. So he's not going to brook Tesla coming along and saying, we'll rip all this infrastructure out and build new. So that was one. And then there was the scientific principle where Edison believed truly that AC current, because it was so high a current, was actually dangerous. It was lethal. What Tesla did to get around it was Tesla bought a company that made transformers. So even though the current itself, and if you look at these high supply lines overhead along rural American roads out here in Pennsylvania, those are dangerous current lines. But when they get to a local power supply, a transformer steps down the current to 110, 120, so that it supposedly will not kill you if you touch it. And that's what Tesla brought to the transmission of alternating current. Well, what Edison did was New York State had an individual who was a condemned murderer, and he was going to be executed. So what Edison did was he arranged for a person in the New York State Department of Corrections to build a chair, an electric chair, and the guy's name was Kamler, to electrocute this guy. And what Edison did was he brought in alternating current to the chair. So he used alternating current. So the experiment was so gruesome, I mean, worse than the Green Mile, it was so gruesome that local newspapers, because since Westinghouse was Edison's sponsor, local newspapers in New York said that the prisoner had been Westinghoused. And that was how somebody was executed with the alternating current. That's how vicious this conflict became.
I'm in for the electric chair. I wish they'd bring the electric chair back.
Yeah,
they still use it. Don't they use it in some states?
Why do you think they should bring the electric chair back? Most states are trying to cancel the death penalty.
I know it, but that's just my opinion.
He gets nostalgic, Bill. Nostalgia.
I'm nostalgic. There you go. That's just my thing.
He likes he likes a good old barbecue. That's what it is.
The Constitution actually has an Eighth Amendment, which is called cruel and unusual punishment, and electrifying someone so that his head starts to smoke is
it's crazy.
Cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, but isn't just like taking somebody's life, regardless of how you do it, is cruel and unusual?
Hardcore people. These
but don't you think there's a difference between the state sanctioning the killing of someone and a person taking someone's life? I mean, when you consider what it takes to actually execute someone, the years and years, the appeals, the state's got to hire lawyers, it goes all the way up and down the ladder. You're better off just having the maximum sentence be a life sentence, and the person never gets out of jail.
Yeah.
There you go.
See, to me, that's what's wrong with the system.
Or they should just have an island somewhere and just let all the criminals in that island, let them fend for themselves. Kind of like what happened in Australia many years ago.
Or like Escape from New York, yeah.
There you go. Just let them all fend for themselves.
I love that show.
Right.
I love that show. That Kurt Russell and who's the other guy in there? The bald guy that played in
Kojak.
Yeah, not Kojak. No. He played in. Let's just go on and forget that. I'll remember. Ernest Borgnine.
Moving on.
Is that it? Ernest Borgnine.
Ernest
Borgnine.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. I'll take your word for that.
Mm-hmm. I thought so. Yeah.
And where were we going with that again, Chris?
Escape from New York.
Yeah.
Movie.
Digress.
That was it.
Kurt Russell.
State question.
Kurt Russell.
Making a point, that's insane. Yeah, I knew.
Speaking of Kurt Russell, by the way, speaking of Kurt Russell, you know they're about to do a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China.
No kidding.
Oh, they are?
Yes. Yep, they are. It's official.
Is Kurt Russell going to do it?
Yes, he is.
Oh, boy. He's all over the place. He's also
for those kind of roles.
He's also going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Is he really?
Yep.
Yeah. He's going to play Star-Lord's dad. It's so cool.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Well, he may or may not play Star-Lord's dad, but that's a whole other thing.
That's the rumor. Yeah, that's the rumor. That is the rumor.
I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
Anyway, moving back on to Bill here. Because if not, these guys would completely derail the show.
I would not.
This is true.
No, well,
sorry for the derailing.
Maybe not you, Crystal, but Tres Leche, for sure.
It's all my fault. I derailed the show again.
I'll take all the fault. It was my fault. I did it.
I'm such a tangenty kind of.
I ran off with the Ernest Borgnine thing and it lost
completely.
focus.
Yep, it's all his fault.
Moving back to Tesla, though. Let's go back to where we were talking about Tesla.
Yes, because Tesla was.
Jesus. So hard to get back on track here.
Almost killed working on his projects, right, Bill? He was heavily shocked really bad?
He did incur injuries, yeah. Yes. That's true.
Probably was killed at the end. I mean, he probably was killed, wasn't he? I mean,
and he was also very sick as a child. I mean, he had to be removed from school and taken back to his parents' house, and he was also affected by the death of his brother. So he certainly did encounter hard knocks in his life.
What was the official cause of death, though, for Tesla?
He died of a heart attack. He died of old age.
Old age heart attack? Can we confirm that, or can we turn that to conspiracy somehow?
He was very sick. I mean, he was living. I mean, he was living alone. He'd blown through tens of millions of dollars.
Crazy. Yeah.
By 1943, I mean, when you consider this, by 1943, not only had Tesla been proven correct about alternating current, not only was alternating current lighting America, but the United States Supreme Court had pulled the patent for wireless radio transmission away from Marconi and handed it to Tesla.
Wow.
So why did he die?
Tesla is the official inventor of radio, according to the United States Supreme Court.
He's the official inventor.
Marconi, who was working for Mussolini, wanted to charge the United States government a license fee for using radio. And it would have been a massive license fee. And so the United States didn't want to pay it. And so Tesla was encouraged to challenge the Marconi patent with his own notes, and the Supreme Court upheld. And the government didn't have to pay Marconi.
Wow. I did not realize
with all the things that he did. I got to ask, with all the things that he did, how the hell did he die penniless? How did he die?
Yeah, I mean, how did he blow that money? I mean,
I don't know.
Well,
you have to think he was just throwing it all into his experiments, and the way Bill describes him, he wasn't.
But we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and back then millions of dollars were carried.
He invested his own money in things, and he lost a lot of money. I mean, when you consider that tower out on Long Island, where he put the tower up at his own expense, well, with investment money, he couldn't get anybody to invest once it was built because nobody knew how to meter wireless transmission of electricity. Now we know how to do that.
Right.
But back then we didn't. And in World War I, the United States government thought that German U-boats could home in on that tower, so they blew it up.
Wow. That has to suck being ahead of your time. I mean, how many things did he invent that they just couldn't use?
That's one way Tesla lost a lot of money.
Go ahead, Chris. Ask that question again because I don't think it was.
Yeah, how many things did Tesla invent that they couldn't use then that we use now? It's like that moment that, we can use that.
Everything.
Bill,
pretty much.
He invented. First of all, he invented wireless transmission.
Right.
He invented. Not just radio, but in his theories, he never built this, but he invented the idea for the wireless transmission of video images. So that would have been television. He invented radio-controlled weapons, which actually the first radio-controlled weapon we ever used was based on a Tesla design, and that was used in the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was a device that Tesla invented, tried to sell to the Navy in World War I. He tried to sell robots. Well, he didn't call them robots because robot is a Czech word.
Right.
But he tried to. But he was talking about mechanized men and robotic devices, and now these are proliferating. He was an early experimenter in the field of artificial intelligence, and we know that Elon Musk, the head of SpaceX and Tesla Motors, Elon Musk is experimenting with artificial intelligence. And
he's a reincarnation of Tesla, maybe.
Crickets on that one.
Wow. Yeah. Nobody, huh?
No,
empty space, just like outer space.
Crickets there.
Here's a question, though, Bill. How advanced do you think at his time was Tesla compared to the rest of the scientific community, and compared to what we have today in the scientific community? Is he still more advanced than the guys working in science today? Because science, to me, seems like it's kind of like at a standstill in a lot of areas.
No imagination.
Yeah,
no.
None.
It depends on the area of science you're talking about. I mean, Tesla was way far advanced for his time.
Right.
I mean, really way advanced.
I would say like he's like 50 to 100 years more advanced than anybody else at that time. With what he was thinking.
I mean, he's talking about wireless transmission of energy.
Implementation,
he's talking about communicating with other planets. He's talking about all kinds of things. Robots, way beyond the expertise of his time. But now, where the exciting stuff is going on is in radio astronomy, theoretical physics. I mean, when you consider where physics is now is where science fiction was 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, that's where it is now. I mean, we're talking about the fact we're actually in theoretical physics. We're talking about things like the concept of block time, where there's no such thing as past, present, and future, But since the future influences the past, because of the Heisenberg uncertainty theory and other aspects of it, you're talking about incredible theories of the relationship of time. You're talking about multiple universes that came out of the Big Bang that are so close to our own universe that there are actual ways to cross between universes and probably not realize it. I mean, that's where physics is. So that's fascinating. We're in an era of talking on a molecular biological level, where, again, molecular biology, talking about the distribution of certain kinds of nerve cells and the function of certain kinds of nerve cells and human ability is way beyond where it was even 10 years ago.
I mean, would we say that the next 20, 30 years is going to be looked at one day as the golden era of this kind of science?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that by 30 years from now, probably by 25 years from now, we will have at least the beginnings of an idea to have a colony on Mars. We will have reached Mars. We will be, I mean, look at the discovery just this week that was announced that an actual planetoid, a dwarf planet in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune, that's now got its own moons. I mean, they're like 100 miles apart, 100 miles in diameter, which is tiny.
But it's there.
But that's fascinating.
Right.
That you've got solar systems within solar systems, or you've got systems
and you got a whole
systems.
planet full of weed. That's right.
Derailing the show one more time, Christopher J. Brown.
No, but it's true.
That
is true. There was a whole planet of weed, according to Angel, who read the article, that they say the plants that are 3,000 times more powerful in THC. So there you go when you're talking about all these different planets.
Nothing to do with that tangent.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
My fault. I had nothing to do with it.
Bill, I apologize. That was all Chris Brown.
Blame it on me.
Bill is like, why? What is even going on?
You've done it again.
Christopher J. Brown.
Bill, I actually have a question though. You said that Tesla was trying to. I have a Tesla question. He was trying to communicate with other planets. So my question to you is, do you think he was successful? And if not, do you think the government was and are doing so now?
I think just knowing what I know about people who've said they were in the know, like what did J. Allen Hynek really know? What did Carl Sagan really know? What did people inside NASA tell me about what was going on in the 1960s? When during the Hilldale UFO sightings. So I think the government knows absolutely far more. I think that's why it's such a closely guarded secret. That were human beings to know for sure the extent of what the government knows, that there would have to be a restructuring, an entire restructuring of human thought about where we are and who we are and where we're going. And I think that it's best I think the government thinks, and they may be right, that really why bother? Like they know what's happening, so keep people happy as long as they can.
Do you think it's bad news?
Yeah, I really do. I think that, and it's stuff you can see around you. I think that we are looking at the event horizon of the sixth extinction. I mean, life on Earth, certain aspects of life on Earth are going to change, and they're going to change dramatically. And that may result in just a very large, biblically significant downsizing of the human population, if not the extinction of us in this time frame.
Well, not only that, Bill, it doesn't even have to only be a natural disaster or a catastrophe. I mean, great civilizations only last so long. We're talking about Egyptian civilizations, the Mayans, the Aztecs. I mean, they lasted only so long. I mean, how long do you think the U.S. is going to last as a superpower or the number one superpower? And how long do you think our civilization is going to last the way it is?
I don't think it's a question of the U.S. lasting. I think it's a question of
society the way it is, period.
Yeah, society the way it is. Yeah,
right.
I think that's right.
So with that in mind, then isn't it possible that an understanding of, if there is any, knowledge that the government is getting from ETs, different planets, might be a positive thing for us in opening minds, broadening our horizon, making us, look at the planet in a more respectful way, so we
if they're positive ETs, but who knows what contact they're making, whether they're positive or negative. But one thing I always found really interesting, Bill, is how Nikola Tesla's he passed away on 1943. And the war ended in 45, and then we had the Roswell crash in 47, all following each other by a couple of years. To me, that's always been intriguing because Tesla was working on what a lot of folks believed was a flying saucer for the government, and that incorporated into what the government was working on when they inherited all the Nazi German scientists and what they were working on. It would lead to to give you a little bit of I guess evidence to maybe that's what happened at Roswell, I think.
Well, that was the theory that this person, Annie Jacobson, advanced in her book on Area 51.
Correct. When did that book come out, by the way?
What?
When did that book come out?
Oh, about 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
4 years ago. And she'd advanced that theory that she'd been told by someone who worked at Area 51, and Anthony Bragalia figured out who that was, discovered who that was who told her that story, that really the Nazis had been working on very advanced aircraft, the Horton brothers flying wing, and they were using children who'd been deformed by Josef Mengele, and that's what actually crashed in Roswell, and it was kind of a big deception. And, of course, that was debunked almost immediately as a theory.
But how do you debunk that, though? I mean...
Well, you debunk it a couple of ways. One was that what she had said was the nature of the craft that was at Roswell was a version of the Horton brothers flying wing, and that's why nobody recognized it. And that's false on its face, because in the 1938 movie Shape of Things to Come by H.G. Wells, they were flying around in flying wings. That was the craft they were flying around, and that was a full 10 years before Roswell. The United States had a flying wing bomber in the 1930s. It was never developed. It was only used as an example, but we actually had flying wings. So we knew what they were. And as far as the Horton brothers flying wing was concerned, the Horton brothers flying wing was made of wood. So there was no memory metal, nothing miraculous about the material that was made. It was made of wood. The other thing was the Nazis had no intercontinental bomber. There was no way for the Germans to fly a bomber or to fly a warplane across the ocean to land in the American Southwest. It didn't happen. So, I mean, those things alone, and Mengele was running for his life through South America in 1940 after the war. He was smuggled out, and he was continuing his experiments in epigenetics and genetics among the South Americans. That's why countries in South America had this large birth rate of blonde-haired, blue-eyed children in the late 1940s until Mengele was. They actually caught this guy. Well, they didn't catch him. He had died.
Mengele was like one of the worst human beings on the planet.
Ever.
So my question to you is, did they go to Antarctica, and is there something there? I want Bill's opinion.
According to Admiral Byrd, according to a number of people, one is that there was a whole German settlement where the Germans had, this is actually before the Nazis, where the Germans had gone to the poles, and they found themselves able to penetrate. There was a hole, and they could go down there, and they actually started a whole country down there called New Swabia. And as the war progressed and the Germans were losing, some of their high command fled to New Swabia, and they had actually an entire civilization down there, their own civilization, and it was it was the Reich, and they had a civilization. And after the war, Admiral Byrd, who had discovered this hole in the earth, led an expedition to in the earth, and supposedly what happened was he led a fleet of seaplanes, took off from an aircraft carrier, or planes took off from an aircraft carrier, and they entered toward this hollow in the earth. They flew in there, and they were attacked by flying saucers. They were all shot down. And supposedly Byrd was captured, and he was told, look, you stay out of here. If you ever come back, we're going to destroy the earth. We're going to destroy you. Just leave us alone. And the records of that whole expedition were buried because Byrd wouldn't reveal what he learned. So that is one of the stories about the New Germany called New Swabia at the center of the earth. But there have been a lot of stories about people going down into the earth. I've never been down there, so I can't tell you firsthand if there's anything to it. But
so hold on. So this is something you haven't experienced?
I have not gone down. Pat Osgood went down into a deep cave outside of Roswell.
I'd believe that.
And he went down into a well in Texas, where we were investigating the Aurora, Texas airship mystery from 1897. He descended into that well where the airship crashed, and sure enough found aluminum parts down there.
No kidding.
And the funny thing about the aluminum parts that he found, when we had them tested at North Texas University, when we had them tested, we were told this was aluminum that was not manufactured after 1950. It was old aluminum.
Oh, wow.
It is an alloy no longer made today.
Oh, wow. Interesting. That's crazy. Bill, question. Knowing what we know now about Tesla, knowing what we know about what happened at Roswell and the Nazi and all that stuff, and do you really believe that there's a hollow Earth? Is basically what I want to get at? Because my good buddy Dennis Crenshaw, who was the Hollow Earth insider for many, many years. And even he wasn't 100% convinced that there was a hollow Earth, but there was pockets within the Earth. Do you think that's part of the major conspiracy when it comes to ufology, all these pockets within the Earth? That
I don't think that there's a hollow Earth. I mean, privately, I just don't think that exists. And I don't think there's a whole civilization down there. And although what I do think is more than possible is that animals migrated through caves. I mean, we know the human beings lived in caves.
Right.
We know the human beings lived in caves for warmth. We know that looking at some of the incredible, we know that human beings lived in caves and took psychedelics. And we know that, so we know a lot. What I do think is that some animals, let's just say reptiles, might have found as the Earth's climate changed, the Ice Age advanced. We know the climate change was partly responsible for the dinosaurs dying off. We know that it was partly the result of a kind of a nuclear winter from a tremendous meteor impact. We know these kinds of things. And I think that as the climate changed, you might have had some reptiles, some species of reptiles crawl into caves, going deeper and deeper into the earth, where they might have evolved. And they might have looked like a very scary kind of animal to, let's say, human beings thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago. Maybe deep in the earth, some of these remains are still able to be retrieved. I doubt it. But that's remains within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really think that the hollow Earth is there is any truth to that, but I do think there is pockets. I mean, you would give credence to there being pockets like the Nazi
absolutely,
theory.
Yeah, I would. We just know how human civilization evolved from just those pockets and caves. We know how society became organized. I still think that there was a whole civilization of human beings before the current civilization of human beings. I think there was one whole group before us that died off. Whether that was part alien, part human, all human, I don't know. But I just know that when there is a series of ruins in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and the Anunnaki referred to those ruins as the elders or the old people or the old ones.
Right.
That says a lot. When the Sphinx has water erosion on it, and for all we know, it's been desert
forever
since it was in Egypt, yet there's water erosion on the Sphinx. I'm not even getting into the conspiracy theories about the pyramids, but I'm just going to say there's evidence of water erosion on the Sphinx. And what does that say about the climate in which that Sphinx was built?
I'm with you 100%. This is something that me and Dennis used to get into all the time. And bringing it back to the hollow earth, but question really, what do you think is more absurd or more plausible, a hollow earth or a flat earth?
Well, that's like saying, we know there's no flat earth, not only because it's been circumnavigated, but we can see it from space. I mean, there are cameras on the moon that look at the Earth.
But can we really, Bill?
What?
Can we really?
Yeah, I think we can. I mean,
it's like yes.
Can we fly? Have we flown a rocket ourselves?
What would be the motivation for astronaut after astronaut going up in everything from Mercury to Gemini to Apollo to everything? What would get them to lie? I mean, it would be at some point in the history of the American space program since 1960, there would be some inclination, hey, wait a minute, we thought this was a round Earth. It's not. There'd be some inclination of that, unless there'd be this whole society of people specifically created to conspire to put up a false theory, by the way, since probably the year 1500.
But couldn't the same thing be said about ufology in general? Like, especially when you deal with NASA and the cover-up? I mean, the same thing could be said.
No, I'll tell you why. Because we have direct physical evidence. We have eyewitnesses. We have testimony. We have photographs. We have physical trace evidence. I've seen some of it myself in the Delphos, Kansas case. The soil from there, where the UFO landed, I've seen the photographs. I've spoken to the researchers. And there is the soil sitting in Phyllis Budinger's lab up in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. It's the weirdest thing. You cannot. It's like sand turned to cement, and yet it's sand.
So, what do you say to people who come at you with the whole flat Earth theory?
I don't come
that's a great idea. Prove it. Show me a photograph of a flat Earth, and you know what? I'll say, there's a possibility here.
You would think there would be at least one somebody that would have came out. I mean, all the whistleblowers we've got that have just at least spread a conspiracy theory, has anybody ever come out and say, nah, guys, they're lying, the planet's totally flat. I just came back from the... nobody's ever done it.
Yeah, I mean, and why would this planet be flat and all the other planets around us be round?
Oh, but Bill, they say all those planets around us are holograms.
They're holograms.
It's not even true.
They're not real.
Shield or
I don't even know what we're on. We're like on a plate.
We're inside of one of those little Christmas ornaments.
Was a movie, but
we're in a petri dish.
It was called Dark City, where they abducted a whole bunch of people, a whole city, and they had them in kind of like a flat plateau, and the experiment was to change their perceptions of reality by switching their personalities from body to body.
Brilliant movie, by the way. Kiefer Sutherland is amazing in that film.
Yeah, he's excellent. And you compare Kiefer Sutherland in that movie to Kiefer Sutherland in 24.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean...
Yeah, I love 24. That was a great series.
No, but he's a master actor. I mean, he's an amazing actor. He really escapes into the characters he plays.
And he's a twin. He's a twin.
He whispers his lines. He makes whispering scary. Because when he's Jack Bauer, he's like, I'm whispering at you, I'm going to break your neck. It's scary for the guy. He's going to break his neck. If you hear that whisper on 24, something bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Well, when the new series comes out, he's going to pass the torch.
Somebody else will be whispering.
I've heard that.
24 Legacy will be coming soon.
Uh-oh. Oh, my goodness.
Would not be the same without Jack Bauer. That's all I'm saying.
Well, he's going to make his handing off the torch thing like some other movies have.
Whatever. Okay, Bill.
Still not the
my
same.
Next question. I know.
Go
so
ahead.
many questions for
Go
Bill.
ahead, Crystal.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, my next question for Bill. There's been a lot of talk, well, not a lot, whatever, about object at the bottom of the Baltic Sea that resembles a UFO.
Or the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
Right. So, there was a sea captain who basically said he found this object. There's been a big dispute about whether the object is actually a USO at the bottom of the Baltic or whether it's something else. I've not seen any video. I've not seen any footage of it. It simply dropped off the radar.
Yeah, it kind of died down completely because there was like some sonar stuff they were talking about, and they showed some video, and then it completely just went off the reservation. That's it.
Yeah, it just disappeared. One theory was that it simply was a natural thing. It wasn't real. It wasn't an object. It wasn't, and goodbye. That was one theory. Another theory was that it was really hushed up because they found something. It was like The Abyss or something.
Also a great movie. What do you think? Because I'm always interested. I mean, especially when you hear something about this, and then all of a sudden you just don't anymore. Like nobody else went to go check it out.
I just found the shape of the thing to be kind of ironic. It would happen around the same time that George Lucas was thinking about selling Star Wars.
Right. I just don't think it's real. I think that it wasn't as though it was debunked. It was they didn't know what it was, and they figured out what it was, and it was perfectly natural, and it's gone.
Got some odd land formation down there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now there was something over at the Malibu area in.
The tunnels, the caves.
Yeah, do you know anything about that? Because honestly, I looked at some of the stuff that came out earlier on that, and of course, Little Ray of Sunshine was talking about that as well on YouTube and on his show. And I didn't really see any big deal there. Like I didn't see anything. Anything that's happened with that? Since
no, not really.
A few months ago?
There was a lot of speculation on.
That's all there is, still, right? Just speculation.
Yeah. There was some group was going to take a submarine down there. You can't dive down there. First of all, it's off this area. I think it's Point Magoo, and it is. If you go inland from where this is a group of points of land that jut out, and on the southern side of that is Santa Monica Bay, and on the northern side of that you head up to the Channel Islands off the coast of Ventura County. So there is, I think, a Google Earth or something that showed what looked like caves. And if you were to go take a straight line, you get to China Lake Naval Base, which is inland for some weird reason. But there are a lot of naval bases. There are a lot of military bases around there. So one thought was, well, maybe this is a place where flying saucers go. I don't know about that, but maybe it's a channel. These are channels for subs. I mean, if there's a way for a submarine to go, and we know that there's the possibility of submarines hiding in caves, so let's just say that there is a channel underneath the California coast where submarines can go, they can load up, they can be stealthy, they don't have to be dry docked above water.
Right.
It makes sense. I mean, if you are, we know some of this, that this technology exists because we were in Andros Island, which is the home of AUTEC, the Atlantic Undersea Testing Center.
Right.
And there was a very, very deep trench and a very thick cable running deep under the ocean. And so we believe that there were submarine channels there. I mean, why have a naval base with no ships? So there was that. So it's not impossible that there are underwater rivers or underwater docking stations, and where submarines can go and get fueled up, or crews can go, even if there's kind of an underground tunneling system. And I wouldn't be surprised. Ken Storch, Ken Storch and his partner were surveilling, I think it was Dugway, if I got to call Ken Storch back, well, we're surveilling the area around Dugway in Utah. And they were following
I heard about this, yeah.
And they were following a convoy of trucks to what they thought would be a checkpoint. And the trucks simply disappeared. And to this day, Ken Storch will tell you that he fully believes those trucks went underground.
Just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so if you wanted to have a secret facility, you'd put it underground. We have the technology to do it.
No, and we know we have facilities underground. Look, Walt Disney has a whole city underground in Orlando. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean,
that's Walt Disney.
We have that. Yeah, we have that technology. So, I mean, why would we not? So it makes perfect sense. Now, the fact that there were actually UFO tunnels underneath Malibu, I mean, that set off a mini flap with some scholars saying that was really a photographic aberration. They didn't exist. No human-made caves could be dug into that in the first place. Maybe they were natural depressions which show up as shadows. These were some of the thoughts that were battering around. I know that I want to say Lee Spiegel from Huffington Post really went on the air and just debunked this thing. So, that was a couple of years ago.
Well, I was going to mention, too, I'm not real familiar with where they build these submarines or not, but I mean, I don't think it's a real public place where they build these things. So could it be reasonable that this could actually be also maybe where they're manufacturing these things and then being able to ship them out
launching them out
from there?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's true. You got to manufacture them somewhere. It makes sense to do it somewhere
and they
under
don't
the
have
ocean.
Places where people can go and see these things. I mean, they're the second between those and the airline. The space aircraft are really the two most secretive things that the government has, and so I don't know if it's anything that people are showing that where they're going to be working on.
I just love how everybody always jumps to the conclusion. Oh, it must be an alien base with alien ships. Has to be aliens. It can't be anything but aliens. Aliens.
It makes more sense that it's a secret military facility than anything else, simply because there's a naval station inland, and if you go further inland from China Lake, you wind up in Area 51. So you've got a whole area of testing facilities heading out all the way into Santa Monica Bay with the missile testing center out there. So I mean, that whole area is military. So it's not as though it's far-fetched that they were able to have a kind of an underground channel leading from the Pacific Ocean to
and that's where
China
they send
Lake.
all the Navy SEALs down there for their training too. All the butts and all that's all right.
No, like
San Diego. This is much further north.
Yeah, it's further further.
Okay,
but it's still, it's not as though it's a big drive to get from San Diego to Ventura County.
Sure,
it's only about what, 5 hours maybe.
No,
and
not only
go
that.
By helicopter anyway.
Yeah, you got to also keep in mind that everybody's so busy, worrying about Area 51 that they could easily have a bunch of different secret bases in that area that nobody even knows about. Stuff like this.
Right. I mean, they could do munitions tests. They could be doing a whole bunch of things. But just when you consider that China Lake is right there, and it's inland, and then you've got these that look like tunnels along the California coast, it just raises the possibility that why wouldn't there be? I mean, it's perfectly plausible. I mean, you see them in James Bond movies,
True.
Right?
Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
I almost think that people like it. It just amuses me that it blows their mind that the government would have like a deep underground military base. Like, really?
Why do you think all the trillions of dollars in taxes are going for? Really? To fix our roads only? No.
It's the $1,400 toilet seat. It is.
Correct.
All this, and then when all of a sudden we see something like that, then it's like, oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, I'm not even surprised when I see stuff like that.
I think it's the Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia, where during the Eisenhower years they actually constructed what turned out to be a nuclear facility, a fallout facility for members of Congress, right under the eyes of the hotel goers. the people doing the construction work came in as television repairmen, supposedly installing televisions or replacing televisions in the rooms. They were really fitting out an underground facility for members of Congress in the event of a nuclear war. Congress would be transported to this facility. They would be housed. There were bunks. We had a guided tour. There were bunks. There were kitchen facilities. There was only enough oxygen for 2 weeks. So think about that. And the thing remained secret from the Eisenhower years right through the beginning of the 21st century, when a reporter for the Washington Post blew the cover of the story, and that's when they turned it into a tourist facility.
Guys, anybody down to do a Skywatchers radio remote? You go check out this facility? Huh?
Let's go.
Yeah,
I think that
if it's not haunted, I'm in. If it's haunted,
yeah.
If it's haunted, I'm definitely in.
Okay, well then you and your life mate can go do that, and I'll be in my office.
He's my hetero radio life mate.
Whatever.
Right.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay. You guys go do the show at the haunted location, and I will be safe in my house.
I always find it funny, like when I see videos on YouTube and stuff of like bomb shelters and how folks go crazy building these crazy tunnels just in case the big one hits. What if like a comet hits? Wouldn't that like completely like destroy your little bomb shelter there? Like,
yeah, you really would have no chance. I wouldn't.
I mean, yeah, maybe if you get attacked.
Volcanic eruptions, you know?
But even if a nuclear bomb, like say North Korea goes crazy and they actually drop the bomb on us, if that happens, what's a little shelter going to do?
Well, what a little shelter is going to do, I mean, if it's a real radiation-proof shelter, I mean, if it's a real underground shelter, then what it's going to do is keep you alive until such time as you can figure out whether it's safe to stick your head out and just prairie dog around.
Yeah, do you really want to live after the nuclear explosion?
That's the whole thing, is you can't outlive it because it's around for so long. So you're like, you dig yourself underground and then you're stuck underneath.
You're basically digging a grave where you could live in for
digging your own grave.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Well, just think about if you outfitted your doomsday prep shelter with hazmat suits.
Yeah.
So
Right,
I mean,
right.
So you really could go outside if there's a plague or radiation sickness because you're in a hazmat suit. Yeah, they're expensive.
But you got to get rid of one hazmat suit after you use it. You got to throw it away because you couldn't reuse that. So you would have to have
unless you hose it down properly, I thought.
Okay, all right. Well.
Yeah. So what if all you're going to do is you're not going to use it to go foraging for animals because you can't eat them anyway.
Yeah.
So what you're probably going to do is use it to go on that long trek outside the lethal radiation zone.
Yeah, but how would you even know where the radiation zone ends?
Well, you wouldn't stick your head out until you knew.
I'm going to check. Let me
where
take my
you're going to
helmet off.
go. Let me just sniff the wind and see if there's radiation. Oops, guess there is.
By the way, Bill, I can recommend a movie for you dealing on this very subject that I just saw recently. I think you'd love 10 Cloverfield Lane. Have you seen that yet?
No, but I've heard about it.
Oh, yeah, good.
Watch it. It's an incredibly well shot movie. It's I would say this John Goodman, Oscar nomination deserved.
Yeah.
So good in this movie.
Yeah.
Just it's amazing. Great film. And it deals with the whole bomb shelter thing, but of course it's dealing with aliens, which is another interesting subject altogether. If aliens are coming down here, and we jump in a bomb shelter, how safe is that really?
Well, at least you'd have something to eat for a while. I don't think I technically. If someone really asked me, look, do you think there's ever going to be an alien invasion of Earth? I would say, yes, there was an alien invasion of Earth. That's basically how we got here, since we're the aliens in the first place.
True, I believe that. Yeah.
That would be my answer. And if I were going to invade a planet, I would invade it the way this planet was invaded, with DNA. I mean, why? If a culture is that advanced, the last thing you're going to have are these robotic insectoid creatures stomping all over the place and destroying the very thing they're trying to take. For what possible purpose could that be? If somebody was able to transport itself from outside the solar system to here, I don't think the first thing they're going to do is destroy this planet. I think the first thing they're going to try to do is basically plant some seed here and know that it's going to take a while to grow. And that seed would have been us, and that would have been something like over 150,000 years ago, and we did grow.
I always love the
experiment went.
It's terribly.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that that's part of the reason for all the intervention, that we are a colony of another species, of a human species. We've evolved to this planet, but we were in fact a colony. And there's a whole hidden history that's not being told to us, although we now know it. And our time on this planet is, geologically speaking, quickly coming to an end. That it's no coincidence that people like Stephen Hawking and other people like that have said, look, humanity's future is really not really on planet Earth. It's off planet.
I think it's Mars, isn't it? I mean, isn't our sleep cycle that of Mars? Like, don't we have the human body? Isn't it like supposedly the sleep cycle of Mars?
Possibly, but I mean,
that planet. I mean, look at Mars.
Yeah, no, but here's the thing. I think this is why we're so obsessed with like finding out what Mars is like and going to Mars and
trying to like jumpstart it, right?
Some of us want to move there already.
Because this is our home and that's where we really are from. You know, I think that's what I believe.
Shostak of Aseti told me. He said that chunks of Mars broke off. That became the formation of life on Earth. So technically speaking, we're not Earthlings. We're Martians.
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
I totally believe that.
That's cool.
You know, I always heard I just
go ahead, Chris.
To say real quick, I just always heard the concept, and I'm no scientist or anything, that the thing of it is when they get on Mars, that by getting there and being able to promote tree growth, grass growth, an environment on it, they will be able to then raise the oxygen level of the planet and essentially bring a life to where you can actually live on it normal like we do.
It's a little bit more complicated than that.
I don't know if that's exactly.
First of all, you're going to need somebody like Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle with moisture farming, and you're going to have to like moisture the atmosphere because it's a very thin atmosphere, and you're going to have to do that all over the planet, including then planting these trees that right now trees wouldn't survive on Mars. Right, Bill? I mean, if you plant trees on there, the way we conceive Mars, they'll die off immediately.
Well, there are trees on Mars already.
Well, so we think we've taken. There's pictures out there that people say.
There are photos out there that
like I say,
it looks like vegetation, and I agree. But I mean, NASA hasn't come out and said, "Yep, those are trees. Those are definitely plant life."
NASA does stand for never a straight answer. So.
That's what I'm saying.
That's crazy, though. I mean, because just think about it. If we're correct, okay, we came from Mars, possibly.
Right. That's what I believe.
Came down to here, okay.
Correct. Yes,
Bill says, and a lot of other smart people say, we're like on the verge of extinction.
Right.
Wouldn't it be really good to know that, hey guys, you came from Mars, you completely fucked that planet up. Maybe you want to do something different when you get to Earth. Just throwing that out there. Like nobody thinks it's a good idea to tell the population that.
Or what if we are not the first experiment in human beings that existed here?
It's
not just there's been one extinction. I think that there were other civilizations of human beings that completely died off, that were either maladapted, such as the little barrel-chested people that they found in Indonesia. But I do think that... Frodo. I think that there were. I mean, seriously, there were other civilizations and other societies that died off ahead of us, and I think our concept of prehistory really is kind of an amalgamation of cycles that went before us, and I think that partly there is a realization of this and a fear of this reaching the general populace. And so we basically reconstruct history. That's why there are so many books of the Bible that were excised from the Bible, like the Book of Enoch, for example.
True.
I mean, like you read the book of, or the book of Nicodemus, or the book of Joseph. You read some of these books, and you might as well be reading science fiction from. Right? I mean, it's
completely different.
Flying saucers coming down on Mount Hermon. The Nephilim are really space creatures. Nobody knows why there are other creatures on Earth that don't look like us.
All I know is that Moses spoke to a burning bush.
could have been that actually. There was actually folks have tried to give a conventional explanation that it was actually a
somebody was smoking pot on the other side of the bush. That's what I think.
Or a spaceship.
Could have been a spaceship, yeah.
Spaceship set the bush on fire, possibly.
Ezekiel's wheel. I mean, there are a lot of references in the Bible that you could say, yeah, that's definitely UFO.
It's true,
right? I mean, you could say that. I mean, Ezekiel's wheel. If you just read that as kind of a straight, like, literature, you would think that he saw a flying saucer and he saw alien creatures who gave him a prophecy about, Son of Man, this is what you have to do.
Which begs the question, Bill, if stuff like that is the case, then couldn't religion in general, like all our religious beliefs, maybe have come from outer space?
Well, sure. I mean, that was, Jan Rooney was Mickey Rooney's 8th wife.
Right.
Her father's name was Red Chamberlain. Red Chamberlain said that he worked for Skunk Works, he worked for Lockheed, he was in the Army Air Force in World War II. He said there are government files, and if those files were ever released, which they never will be, then the world's religions would collapse. And so I think that there really was a conscious effort to inculcate human beings with a belief that these creatures, I mean, if you look at it from the ET perspective, that, that these are really ETs, and they created the story of a deity so that in order for us to be controlled. I mean, if you just look at Genesis, for example, and just extrapolated this, you're talking about an extraterrestrial creature who creates two terrestrial creatures. But there's another creature already living here with the same sensing and power that the terrestrial creatures that were just created have, that subverts them from the extraterrestrial creature and is therefore punished by the extraterrestrial creature.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he loves us.
And then the human genome is somehow altered so that human beings, which were immortal at the very conception, are now mortal.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
just crazy.
That part of it really sucks, by the way. By the way, we're joined by Lou, who I'm sure has a fascinating question. Lou, welcome to Skywatchers Radio.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Bill, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the Stephenville case and the Phoenix Lights case. That is, I've heard some people say that they think that those were U.S. military technology, or at least the Stephenville case one was. I personally don't think that, but what's your opinion of the two, and is there a connection? And what about the fact that presidents were at least tangentially involved in both cases? So those are my questions.
Okay, well, the Stephenville case, Stephenville case more than the Phoenix case. I think the Stephenville case probably was not something that was American technology. I just don't think so. I did see the dashboard camera from this one constable's car. I actually wound up seeing that, and that certainly didn't look like any aircraft. Not even a balloon, which I thought the Phoenix craft was originally. The Phoenix Lights one, we were at the time experimenting. I guess we still are, but we were back then. You're talking almost 20 years ago. We were back then experimenting with various types of giant neutral buoyancy craft. I know we had a cloaking device because I actually saw the thing working at Dugway. So I know we had a cloaking device, and I believe we had the ability to throw holograms out to make it seem as though the craft was moving in a direction when it wasn't, and all those factors describe the craft in the 830 lights in Phoenix. The people who saw it, and they did see a rigid structure, they were able to look through it. They were looking at somehow wavy starlight coming through it. At least that's what Fife Symington said. So if the military was experimenting with the cloaking device and wanted to get a public reaction to it, that's what was going on. And the fact that it shot off again, if it was a hologram and the ship could actually become invisible and those orbs could go dark, the ship would look like it was doing a Star Trek maneuver, going into warp. That being said, the military was, as you heard Peter Davenport talk about on Monday night, the military was crazy secretive about it. Fife Symington was forced into doing this stupid news conference about it. The military had camera footage from F-15s that they denied flying around that night after it. That was taken away. Peter Davenport of the National UFO Reporting Center personally spoke to the airmen who retrieved the film footage from one of the F-15s and put it aboard a T-39 for a flight who knows where. So that was a first-hand statement. So the fact that it was a military plane or a military craft being tested, it is belied by the government's reaction to it. So it's probably likely both were not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm very skeptical that the U.S. government could pull something like that off, and I don't know why they would in that context. But what about the fact that Bill Clinton was at least tangentially involved?
That's the other part of it. Bill Clinton supposedly had a quote-unquote knee injury.
Right. And then George Bush, I didn't think he was at his compound in Texas at the time. I did not think he was. I may have misheard Davenport say that he was, or someone say that he was.
No, I don't think he was. Yeah. And that's why the F-16s wouldn't have been deployed to protect the Crawford Ranch, because Bush wasn't there. There was nobody there. He was in Washington. But in Phoenix, it was so odd because Bill Clinton disappeared from view. He was incommunicado. Then he offers the pardon to Fife Symington and you don't know why. It just comes out of nowhere.
That's why, Bill, I don't believe when Nancy or when Hillary says that she's going to get to the bottom of the UFO stuff and she's going to tell us the truth.
Oh, bullshit. I don't think she's going to do that.
She's hoping people will vote for her just for her statement.
Right. That's exactly what it is. That's what she and a lot of these candidates do. They just tell you exactly what you want to hear to earn your vote.
Well, I really think she intends to do that, but I don't think she will be able to. I don't think she knows.
She'll be in jail.
Well, she won't be in jail, but I think she'll be. I think that when she's read in, the secret will be far, far worse. And there's no such thing. See, a lot of politicians believe they can do this halfway. They can do this, here it is. It's very simple. I'm going to do it halfway. I'll say, UFOs are real. We don't know anything about them. Goodbye. That's kind of like disclosure, right? I don't know. It's UFOs, flying saucers. They're around. We can't stop them. Who cares? Goodbye. Now you go and try to explain that in a sanguine way to the abduction community, right? That's not going to happen. So that's first of all. You can't half disclose. You're going to disclose. You're going to tell the whole ugly truth about this thing.
I still don't think the Crawford target is a coincidence. Of all places on the earth to happen to be flying toward, that's a bit odd. Oh well.
It is.
Yep.
What about Trump's position on UFOs? I know I spoke earlier with Nancy online, and she says, I don't know if she was teasing me or not. She probably was, but she said he believes in tribbles. But what do we know about Trump?
He's got trebles on his hair.
He's got trebles.
Yeah.
He's got treble hair.
That's a dead treble on his hair right now. Like
it's
Star Trek. Somebody in Star Trek right now is trying to find him. They want to sue him for that.
If Donald Trump thought that with his demographic, talking about UFOs would get him the presidency, he'd come out with Vulcan ears. So that's not going to happen.
I wonder if he's interested in the subject, though. To be
I got
honest.
a bad feeling we might have Obama for another 4 years.
It's not happening, dude.
You think?
Well, it can happen. It can.
No.
Yes, it can, and I can explain how too.
Oh, jeez. We got 20 seconds. Go. 25 seconds.
Let's hear your explanation of getting around the Constitution.
Well, it's not getting around the Constitution. It's actually in law with the Constitution.
Go.
What happens is that Hillary decides to have Obama as her VP and running mate. The problem is that because of all the bullshit that Hillary did, she ends up getting indicted and impeached as soon as she becomes president, and then you have another 4 years of Obama.
She can't have Obama as her running mate.
Why not? There's no law against it.
If you're president and you finish your two contiguous terms in
law
office,
against it.
What? He couldn't take the office of president.
Bill, he cannot be elected president more than twice. He can serve as president more than twice.
That, I think, would be very heavily challenged.
Bill, I think, would know the answer to that.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
There's
Unfortunately,
no constitutional law that states he cannot serve as president again. He just can't be elected more than twice.
Well, first of all, it's never happened, so there's no
There's no president.
So there's no case law.
Right.
And a lot of the Constitution is interpreted via case law. It's not interpreted by somebody reading the Constitution and saying, yes, this works, no, it doesn't. I mean, if somebody wanted to sue Ted Cruz, which is going to be moot anyway, but for running for president and being born in Canada, that would go to the Supreme Court. And that would be case law. It's never gone to the Supreme Court, so it's really he said, she said.
I'm still puzzled about how Ted Cruz is running for president. He was born in Canada. He's of Cuban descent. How exactly is this possible?
I'm surprised we're talking about Obama being from Kenya, you know.
Yeah, but at least Obama was born in Hawaii, and his mom was like white bread American.
One more question for Bill.
And then we got to go.
Time. I know we got to go. One more question. But, Bill, we had Stephen Bassett on, and he was talking about Hillary and disclosure and all that. So my question kind of to you is, he seems to think that disclosure is going to happen because if the United States doesn't jump on it, then somebody else will, like AKA Russia. And we can't be left out of the dark. Like if Russia starts talking about UFOs and we don't, that's a huge hit for us. Do you think something like that is possible?
No, because first we've already had disclosure. I don't know why the Harry Truman's disclosure of the existence of UFOs in 1950 is so overlooked, but he goes on television and he says, these are flying saucers, we know what they are. You don't have to have Obama do it. Harry Truman already did it. Jimmy Carter already did it. Ronald Reagan already did it. You don't need, that's the thing. If Ronald Reagan goes public, which he did when he was governor, about following a UFO across the Mojave Desert, which he did, he told the Wall Street Journal when he landed in Sacramento, oh my God, we found a UFO, we chased it. I mean, it's a first-hand sighting by a president of by a governor of the state of California, soon to be president of the United States, about a UFO. Jimmy Carter files a UFO report. That is disclosure. There is a person, governor of Georgia, soon to be president of the United States, filing a UFO report. Jerry Ford, in 1966, forces the House Science Committee to deal with the question of UFOs after the Hilldale, Michigan sightings. Jerry Ford, soon to be president of the United States. I mean, really, when you consider the whole thing, you realize that we have had ongoing disclosures. Sure, maybe they haven't been at a formal news conference, but Harry Truman's was. He said this to reporters.
Wow.
Why do you think people overlook that so much, Bill? I mean, people do overlook that fact, and they still act like disclosures never happened. You know, when will they give us disclosure? You have, like you said, Stephen Bassett was on, and he's been fighting for disclosure for eons now.
Oh yeah, he's been lobbying for it. But the thing is that it's overlooked because the CIA did a magnificent job in the late 1940s and early 1950s of marginalizing the whole thing to the point where anybody who talks about UFOs, people fall on the floor in laughter. They even do that now. You know, Obama makes a joke about, oh, it's so crazy, people still believe in Roswell, and you see this on the news. That's actually the truth. That's what people think. So really, there's no point in That's why it's been overlooked.
It's still the laugh factor. It's still, yeah.
It is. But why did they get away with it and Kennedy didn't?
Well, there were so many other factors with Kennedy. No, he didn't get away with it. But then remember, Kennedy was on drugs. He was on methamphetamines.
Yeah, he was.
He was slipping away from his Secret Service detail when he went to New York to go sleep with call girls. They thought that he was... they knew that he was spilling state secrets to people like Marilyn Monroe, and who was going to go public and tell the truth about the state secrets he was spilling, like trying to kill Castro and the presence of Area 51. And there were a bunch of things that piled up. Plus, Bobby Kennedy had really gotten the Chicago mob angry. And the CIA, and then Kennedy had the temerity to... the CIA was both heavily involved in laundering money for drug traffickers in Southeast Asia. This is circa in the 1960s. So, and then also there was oil deposits in the China Sea. And with those two things, our pulling out of Vietnam in 1963, when Kennedy said that he was going to pull the advisors out in 1963, then when he found out that the CIA was actually dealing with drug lords in Southeast Asia, he pulled the CIA out of Southeast Asia and killed the CIA paramilitary. So he basically squashed that and started the Army Special Forces. So the CIA basically was about to lose its one great source of funding, that is drugs, and that was really one of the clinching effects. They tried to assassinate Kennedy in Florida, but he was warned in advance, and they were able to co-opt Lyndon Johnson to shut this down in Texas.
It's crazy how it's all drug-related at the end.
It is drug-related.
It's crazy.
It's drug and money laundering related and oil-related. And that was the whole thing. I mean, Kennedy announces we're pulling our advisors out of Vietnam. We're not supporting the Diem regime. At the same time, the Army is publishing a manual for how to behave if you're a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Crazy stuff. Bill, love you, man. You're the best, and thank you so much for being here with us on the show. And we're all out of time. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I will see you, of course, on Monday. And
see you next Monday.
But let's plug. Who are you having on Feature Theater this Monday? Who are we having on?
We're having...
I have no idea.
Well...
Tell us, Chris.
I'm here. We are having Dennis Rogers, the owner of the Canna King Medical Marijuana Dispensary here in Roseburg, and he is also running for the Roseburg Commissioner. So he has all kinds of things to talk about, even some legal things to talk about too, Bill, which
okay, well, I will let you and Nancy really run that show. There you go.
Yeah.
that should be good. That should be good.
Okay,
yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on. It'll be very interesting, and we will actually be doing it from the dispensary itself, the show. So that'll
that's great. So high times on Future Theater.
It will be high times on Future Theater, my friend. And
anything else you want to plug, Bill, before we let you
go? No plugs. No plugs. Just everybody tune in next week to Future Theater for a high time.
There you go. And who's going to be on Skywatchers next week, guys?
Next week we have the co-founders of AncientOriginsNot.net on.
Oh, very nice, very nice. So there you go, guys. Stick around for that next week. Stick around for more PSN Radio. Thank you, Bill Birnes, again for being our guest tonight. You are awesome. Love you, sir.
Okay.
And thank you, Nancy Birnes. Shout-outs to her and everybody listening in. Thank you for being here, other guy, Chris Brown, and DCS, Crystal Storm. You rock, and you're never late to the party. You're the best.
Thank you, guys.
We'll catch you next week right here on PSN Radio. Please stick around for more of whatever it is that's going to go on next.